which was around 6. My mother asked me why I wrote. At the time, I was too little to really answer that. And then sometime, I think when I turned 14, I realized that I wrote because it made me happy. At 16, I realized, okay, you know what? I like observing people, observing things, observing everything around me. So I need a place to put all those observations down, right? Maybe that's why I write. And at 19, I realized that my reasons for writing much darker. I needed to dump all that pain and rage and trauma and darkness and bloodshed somewhere. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'll put it on the page. And right now, at 28, I am 28. I got confused because I'm turning 29 in like less than a week. So 28 right now, right? 28 or should I say 29? I'll just say 28. At 28, I understand that my reasons have changed again. And they're so beautiful, but I'm not going to tell you, not because I want to gatekeep it. I'm going to show you, not tell you. So I want you guys to close your eyes just for a moment. Okay, we're going to visualize something. We are not at DLF right now. Okay, we are in outer space. That means we're 6 billion kilometers away from planet Earth. And planet Earth is just a tiny dot against the vastness of space. Can you see it? Can you see that tiny dot? 6 billion kilometers away, huh? I want you to focus on that tiny pale blue dot. That's here. That's us. And that is home. Everyone that you have ever loved, everyone that you've ever met, everyone you've ever heard of has lived out, continues to live the life on that pale blue dot. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, our ideologies, philosophies, religions, heroes, saints, saviors, sinners, everybody, everything is on that pale blue dot, that suspended mote of dust. Okay, open your eyes. Wow. Now, I didn't say that. Carl Sagan did, of course. But, and if you actually go back and Google, not right now, but stay with me, Google it, pale blue dot, and you will find a photo of the Earth 6 billion kilometers away, taken by Voyager 1 in 1990. Why did I bring that up? Why did Carl Sagan write about that? Well, he wanted to show us humanity's place in all of this, whatever this is. And if you think about it, our place is quite insignificant. And yet the lives we live, they're so colorful, they're so strange, weird and wonderful, painful and beautiful, and so many absurd things. All that cosmic horror and cosmic beauty, why wouldn't we document that? We write because we write to document our lived experiences, which, I mean, our lived experiences, our life itself is just such an absurd miracle, right? We write because, okay, wait, how many of you guys write? Let's see, like a show of hands. Not bad. I can see some people slowly putting their hands up. What's up with the hesitation? Oh wait, let me guess. You came here yesterday, you're here today, like, wow, there are a lot of big writers. Tell me about it. I've been feeling a little intimidated too. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? But you know what? Here's the deal. Just like how we're made up of a very specific set of atoms, right? And we know that no permutation is ever the same. Nobody's lived experiences are the same. Your lived experiences are not going to be the same as his lived experiences. Your imagination is not going to be the same as her imagination. Everything about you is so unique, including the way you tell your story, including your story. No one can tell your story the way you do. It actually takes me back to what Homer said in the Iliad. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again. We literally will never be here again. So, no hesitation. Write your stories, write them for your reasons, whatever those reasons are. Whether it's because writing gives you a voice, maybe you write because it makes you feel seen, makes you feel understood. Maybe you write because I don't know. I don't know actually. I mean, we all have our own reasons because it makes you happy, because you need a record of your memories, because, I mean, any reason, because you need a place to put your grief, whatever it is. Do it. For my character in Our Bones in Your Throat, my novel, she wrote poetry and performed poetry because it made her feel less alone. I'm talking about a character, not myself. So this I'm not gonna talk much about the character. I'm not gonna talk much about the book. Instead, I'm gonna perform here. If you guys can't hear me, let me know, okay? Is this fine? Could you not hear me before? Have I been rambling for... Is this okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, better. Good that I did that, otherwise if I performed it would have... Okay. I'm not gonna talk much about the book. I'm gonna perform a poem that the character performs in the novel. I know that sounds very confusing because it's like poetry, is it a poetry book, is it a novel? You'll have to read to find out. Wow, capitalist plugin. I can't believe I could stoop so low, but okay, whatever. So this one is called Those Who Break You Will One Day Bow to You. Guys, if my mic is weird, you gotta tell me. You cannot keep quiet about it. Okay, yes, we're good? Okay. Oh, but I got like a little tangled. I'm using this mic for the first time, so this kind of mic. Usually I have my standing mic. Okay. Those who break you will one day bow to you. Those who break you will one day bow to you. The enemy will burst into a bouquet of flowers and they will apologize for being cowards who tried to step on you. Apologize for the harm they tried to do, but this is how the story goes. Seething, crying, drunk driving, bruising yourself on strangers' beds, your therapist begging you to take your meds, traumatized and brokenhearted. That's how you started, but this is how the story goes. You trusted them. Love them hard and now you forget them harder. You wake up, brush your teeth, think about them a couple of times and that's it. Never again. Hey, do you hear me? Never again. What did you love about them anyway, huh? The way they manipulated and disrespected, or the way they sent you howling to your mother, friends, lovers, brothers, sisters, any of the others who didn't see your worth and only gave you a truckload of hurt? Fuck them. Fuck them. Because this is how the story goes. Glitter on cheeks, paint on toes, do your liner heavy, prepare to get ready, march into the city streets like a divine beast, a visual feast. Wear that blazer right now, not later. There is no special occasion. You are the special occasion. Fuck the side character. You're a hero, all new age, every single angle shot from the female gaze, and they don't get to damage you like that and then expect you to keep looking back. Tell them your eyes are too pretty to be looking at crap. Like, who the fuck do they think they are? You didn't come this far to fall here, so my dear, don't you dare shed a tear, because the gods were tripping when they made you. Head banging to your breath like it was trance music. You were meant to make it big. So let them watch and burn and wish they had you back. But the fact is that this is how the story goes. Higher and higher and higher you rose from rock bottom. When they thought you were forgotten, you showed the world that this is your story. No, you are the story. You're unstoppable, unshakable, untamable, invincible. You are magic that's meditating. You are dangerous because no matter what, you are always growing. But above all, you saved yourself. You are brave, no doubt. You didn't let adversity fold you like origami and throw you in the trash and all that jazz. You woke up, got up, worked your way through it all to shine hard and stand tall. And if anyone makes you feel small ever again, remember, my friend, you are not theirs to destroy. Do you hear me? You are not theirs to destroy. So don't you dare stand there grieving over what they did to you, and instead look at what you've become. Acknowledge what you've become, accept what you've become, and celebrate what you've become. A testimony to holy resurrection, your comeback, a personal revolution. You are freedom, and you are grace. You are rain, and you are riot. Not subtle and not quiet, you are graphic and unrestrained. Your beauty refusing to be chained. You are fire, and you are love, the kind that has doves inside its boxing gloves. You are the raging force of all the things that you have survived and will continue to survive for as long as you are alive. Thank you. I would have liked to perform more poems because I do remember like I did like a proper series of shows a few months back. But what happens with these performances is that after a point I've performed them so many times, it just takes like a bit of life out of me. And I'm like, okay, I think I've shouted a bit too much. I just want to go and be peaceful in my room now. So we did speak about the universe and, existence and all of that, very pretty. So I think at this point we've arrived at a point where we all know we are connected, right? We're connected, and that's beautiful. And if we're connected, then we share our joys, and that's why we've come here to celebrate literature and whatnot. But if we share our joys, then we should also share our grief and our suffering. I want to read a poem by a Palestinian poet, which is what I saved my next 5 to 10 minutes for. But I did not plan this properly, so I'm going to get my bag if someone can help me with that. Thanks. Okay, over 40,000 Palestinians have been killed now, and I know even holding space comes with privilege, but I'm going to use that privilege to read this poem by Noor Hindi. Is the mic fine? Okay. It's called Fuck Your Lecture on Craft, My People Are Dying. Colonizers write about flowers. I tell you about children throwing rocks at Israeli tanks seconds before becoming daisies. I want to be like those poets who care about the moon. Palestinians don't see the moon from jail cells and prisons. It's so beautiful, the moon. They're so beautiful, the flowers. I pick flowers for my dead father when I'm sad. He watches Al Jazeera all day. I wish Jessica would stop texting me Happy Ramzan. I know I'm American because when I walk into a room, something dies. Metaphors about death are for poets who think ghosts care about sound. When I die, I promise to haunt you forever. One day, I will write about the flowers, like we own them. All right. Cool. So that is about it. We have around 10 minutes. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them.
Check.
I'll just say it like this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here.
What's your name?
I'm Matumita.
Madhumita.
Yeah, huge fan. Loved reading. It was very interesting to see this as a novel. I thought maybe a poetry edition or something. But one question which is like, again, like when you said performance, you put a lot of your self out there when you write things or when you speak about things. So does it take a toll on you sometimes? Or how do you maintain that balance between sending that emotion out, because the way you perform, that emotion needs to touch me, and
Yeah.
that we both are touched. So, but then having been in this field, like it does take a toll on you when you keep doing it.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that balance, and how do you take care of yourself?
Actually don't perform very often because of that. So writing doesn't do that to me. I can write whenever and it's always catharsis. But when I perform, it's getting so close to the wound and I'm like, I don't know if this is healing me or just reopening the wound. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I usually do is I just have to actively keep in touch with how I feel, and I do my shows, and I know when I'm starting out, I always start with a lot of energy, but I know when my mind starts shutting down after a few shows, that's when I realize, okay, now it's time to take a break. So I don't perform throughout the year. I usually perform when a book is out, and once that's done, I kind of just go back into my little cave, which I think I feel like, okay, I deserve that. I can do that for myself. So yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Meena.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Prishita.
Rishita.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just
Good name.
loved the pieces that you performed right now. They were so touching. But I wanted to ask you this question that as a writer, usually what we are like put into brackets, right? Like if you're a poet, you will not be able to or will struggle while writing a book or something like prose for that matter. And this is something that I am facing, that I am comfortable in writing prose, but I suffer in writing poetry because I can't keep myself concise. So while you were writing your new book, did you also feel that dilemma or that problem, or did you face that hurdle too?
I do understand that, but I also always challenge myself when it comes to these things where I'm like, okay, but who is saying a poet can't write prose? Who is saying someone who writes prose can't write poetry? And then I tell myself, actually, not me. I'm not going to think that. For me, that's a limiting belief, and I'm not going to do that to myself. Poetry is not really about being concise. Like, there have been epic poems by Milton and all that just go on and on and on. I think poetry has got more to just do with being raw and vulnerable and honest. With a story, you can still hide behind the plot and the characters, but with poetry, you just have to bear your heart, which could be so difficult. So I think maybe that's the hang up there. If you say that you write prose in a more confident way, but poetry kind of leaves you a bit stuck. I think you've got it in you, but you just need to come like one step closer. Just like how I do with performance. I write poetry and that's very easy for me, but when I'm performing poetry, I'm like, I have to look into people's eyes and I have to say this out loud? Oh, what? I may as well go to like a therapist or something. Why would I do this to myself? But yeah, give it a shot and just don't tell yourself, oh, okay, I write prose, that's why I can't write poetry. There's no such thing like that. You're just putting yourself in a box.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Hi,
Hi, Megha.
What's your name?
Diksha.
Deeksha. Oh, I think I've run
Yes.
into you before.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, you remember me?
Yes.
I have read the book and I really loved it.
Thank you.
I wanted to know which character you relate to more, Isai or Sheher?
Okay. I think it would be. Wow, you put me on the spot. Yeah, I think it would be Sheher. But I think you already knew
thought
that.
so.
You knew
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You knew
I
that.
did.
That is because when I was making this character, in fact, I tried so hard to write her in a way where she didn't seem like me, because there were already so many similarities. I was like, okay, you know what? It's too similar. Now I'm gonna change a lot of other things about her, maybe the way she looks and all of that. But I relate to her because she is vulnerable. She can't help it, and that's how I used to be in my early 20s and in my teens, where I couldn't help my emotional world. It just existed. And it felt so oversized for me. I was like, why does my emotional world feel like baggage? And when it starts feeling like baggage, there's a certain kind of shame attached to it. And I was feeling so much shame for it. I was like, wow, here you go again, crying over this, here you go. Like, this is not cool. That's what I thought. But I think writing this book in my late 20s and getting in touch with a character like that, I've realized that there's so much courage that goes into being vulnerable. And it's all about really, it is another way of showing up for yourself. I think what I realized was that, okay, I can keep my emotions and honor them, but at the same time be private about them. And I just need to learn that. And I did, and I'm very grateful. But when I see that character, I'm like, okay, you're very unhinged, and I feel bad about that, but I want to protect you. And I think those are the feelings I have towards that character. So do I see myself right now? No. But do I see my past selves in her? Yes. Thanks for your question.
Hi Megha, this is Deepa.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Your book is one of the books I'm going to pick up. And for someone who hasn't read the book, would you be able to tell us about the title?
Sure. So people have asked me about this title, and they're like, it sounds intriguing. It sounds dirty. Someone said that, and I was like, shut up. Don't ever say that again. And this was before the book came out, so I went to my sister and I asked her, should I change the title? But she was like, no, it's fine. So our bones in your throat is actually a line or a phrase that's taken from a performance poem in the book. One of the characters is a performance poet. So she discovers overnight fame and glamour while she's going through a really messy situation, and that starts messing with her head because now she's dealing with a messy situation, and a lot of people who turned against her suddenly saying they love her, and she becomes a performance poet. And one of the poems in the book that she performs has this line, has this phrase, our bones in your throat, but it's literally about, I'll give you a small story, like an anecdote. My mom used to tell me about her cat who always got like a bone stuck in its throat every time it ate fish, and it couldn't swallow, and she's like, I'd have to pick it out and all of that. So even in this, it's like, you can try to eat and kill us all you want, but even if you try to swallow us, you can't swallow us. We will stay stuck in your throat and we will hurt you. It's kind of rebellious. It is kind of like protest poetry. It's like, even if you try to hurt us, we're going to fight back. That's literally what it means.
Hi Megha.
Hi.
I'm
What's your name?
Shreya.
Shreya. Hi.
Okay, so I wanted to ask, like, what led you to write this book? Like, how did you get the idea? Like, you wanted to write this?
I think that I wanted to write poetry. In fact, first, I think that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I have an idea. But I realized the scope was too large in this case, so I just turned towards fiction. But for me, what started with this book was, I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's just got a lot of performance poetry, a lot of magical realism, haunting, college, campus politics, all sorts of things. It started with the campus politics, I'll be honest, because I went through a bit of strange bullying back in college. And I always wanted to write about it, but every time I would try to write about it, I would feel like such a damn victim about it. And I told myself, you need to start looking at it from another perspective. You don't want to write a sob story. You want to write something that's a little empowering. So I waited for that, and then for some reason, I don't know why, when you don't even know where an idea comes from, it just comes out of nowhere. And then it mingles with your lived experiences, and suddenly a story is formed. So as far as the magical realism bit is concerned, I guess it just came. I can't really explain where that bit came from, but all I know is that I could perfectly visualize this not so creepy Yakshi kind of, I don't know if you've heard of the Yakshi folklore, that, okay, so this scary Yakshi kind of woman in a lake waiting to complete her story. And then I was like, okay, wow, how do we vilify some people and we turn some people into heroes, but that's not always true, right? It's public perception, and anything can change through a rumor, right? So that got me thinking, and then I kind of brought that in. So it's just like a lot of different themes and a lot of different stories also connected together. So I can't really explain where the idea came from, but I would say it's just a mix of lived experiences and imagination. So yeah, hope that answers it in a decent way. Okay. Cool. I think I've got like 1 minute left. Anyone wants to ask one last question, or do we wrap it up?
When are we getting the podcast continuation?
The podcast. I don't know. I actually have no idea about the podcast. I actually left it there and I forgot about it. But yeah, people do ask me about the podcast. Well, I'm not closing any doors, that's for sure. But I don't have a timeline on it. So that's that. Okay. So thank you so much for being here.